You're crafting content for an industry worth nearly $80 billion. And every single word you write could influence somebody's next decision or betting experience. Welcome to the world of iGaming. And in this episode 2 of how to become a successful iGaming writer, we will look into this industry in depth. And we're going to talk about all the verticals that you need to know to get started. You want to watch this to the end because I've also included a worksheet to help you track everything we're going to discuss in this video and also have access to specific resources to help you learn before the next episode is ready. iGaming covers every legal betting content online. We're talking casinos, we're talking sports betting, esports, fantasy sports, and even some player versus player games that we're starting to see recently. That also includes lottery and bingo. So those are not just for charity events. If it's happening online, it's iGaming. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you write, you're not just writing about these games or the betting activities. You're creating educational content for people who are looking to engage or people who are kind of curious about certain things, maybe the legalities or even responsible gambling. That's why it's very important to know every single vertical in iGaming before you even get into the whole idea of writing or trying to monetize your skill as an iGaming writer. Now, what are these verticals? That's the second thing we're going to look at. iGaming is very, very broad, as you would already get from what I've said so far, but we have 6 main verticals that you will be dealing with as a starter. 1, casino. For casinos, you have everything from casino reviews itself to game guides, writing about slots, writing about table games, or even writing about land-based casinos. Yes, this is iGaming. We're focused on the online space, but as an iGaming writer, you might still have to write about the land-based casinos, especially when you're talking about things like gambling history in specific locations and legalities as well. Now, for sports betting, you're not only going to talk about the sites where people can bet, you will talk about things like odds, you would have to cover things like events, and so much more. Do they accept live betting? Can you do things like accumulator bets? It's a very, very broad sphere when it comes to sports betting. And why it's interesting writing about sports is that you don't have to know every single sport. You just need an idea of what it's like to bet on these games, what matters, what are the available betting markets per sport. Usually, I would tell new writers to start with football. Try to master how football betting works, how basketball betting works, because these are where you're going to get the bulk of your work. Right? So once you master these 2, it becomes easier to flesh things out and, know about other ones. It becomes easier to research and understand how you can bet on other games. Now that's for sports, and we've talked about casinos. Now for bingo and lottery, the general mindset is that these are meant for charity events, but they happen a lot online these days, especially because they're very simple and there's nothing like a learning curve. Right. So for these 2 verticals, you just want to learn the different types of bingo games that are available. How do they work? How do you know when you've won? How do you bet on bingo? For lottery, what are the different types of lotteries? Now it's more complex because aside the typical state lotteries that different countries have, which are very popular and people can even watch on TV, you have some that are specific to some casinos. So you want to also master how to differentiate between the general lottery that everybody knows and loves and the ones that are specific to casinos themselves. Now, that's the 3rd vertical. Moving on to esports. If you are not a gamer, if you're not someone who plays Call of Duty or watches people play games like Valorant, you may think this is complex, but it's also a very important vertical where a single article can earn you a lot of money. Why? Because there are not so many writers who fully understand this vertical. What you want to do is follow tournaments. Even if you can't follow tournaments, learn about these games. Because here you're going to write about the games themselves. Whenever there's an update, you're going to write about these updates to help people who are interested understand what new features are available. You want to learn about kind of betting markets, what are the popular tournaments, and things like that. So that's vertical 4. Now, fantasy sports. You want to learn why this exists. How is it different from regular sports? Because you're going to see things like fantasy football, and in your head, you're like, what's the difference, right? So you want to fully understand how this differs from regular sports, how you can engage, how people bet on them, and why, what sites offer them. The final one is poker. It's very easy to think of poker as just a general card game when you're talking about the casino vertical. You just group it with card games that you would write about. But poker is quite different because we have poker tournaments. Poker is so big that it's a niche on its own. There are people who write only about poker. So you just want to understand the basics. How does this game work? How do people play these games? If you understand the basics of the gameplay, you don't have to necessarily play by yourself. Once you know the foundations of it, it becomes easier to write guides. How to play poker, what are the variants of poker, what does a beginner need to know, what are simple poker tips. These are the kind of things that you're going to write. That's why it really pays to study like all 6 verticals. Now, the question you want to ask is, do I need to niche down within the iGaming space? I'm just starting. I can't master everything. No, you don't need to niche down. It sounds simpler or easier to just say, okay, I'm going to write only about casinos, but it pays to know a little about everything. Because in the long run, you would find out that a single casino site would feature all of these verticals. Take, for example, you have to write a detailed casino review. If you only understand the slots side of things, because slots are like the easiest casino games to write about. They are the most popular in every site. If you only understand how to write about slots and you cannot talk about table games, you don't know the difference between blackjack, poker, and baccarat, how are you going to write a detailed review and tell people these are the number of games or these are the kind of games available on this site? Or if, for example, the site also has a betting section and you do not know what betting markets are, you don't know what odds are or the different odd formats, how are you going to write a detailed review of that sports betting section? What are you going to tell people? Are there available tournaments or championships they can bet on, or how they can find their betting slip and stuff like that? You would need to have like a very basic idea of how everything works. Now, I know this sounds like a lot. This sounds like so much. So here's what I would advise. If you're starting, narrow things down to learning just casino and sports betting first. Take it as your first week assignment. Learn about casinos and sports. What are the popular casino games? How do people play them? Okay, how does sports betting work? Or rather, how does sports betting work? How do you place bets? What are odds? What are the different odd formats? Once you have known these things, it becomes easier to start learning the other things. Besides, I am very sure your very first job that you're going to get would either be to write a casino review, a sports book review, or a slots review. So once you know these two verticals, that's casino and sports, it's very easy to start. Now that you know what iGaming is and you understand the different verticals, the next important thing is how to actually write. Before you start writing, a client will usually give you what we call a brief. Now, the brief features everything you need to write, the structure of your article, from the introduction to the specific things they want you to talk about. You want to learn how to understand a brief. I'm going to go into detail in the next video. I will break down a whole brief and tell you guys how I, analyze briefs, even using AI. Yes, I did not say write using AI. I said analyze briefs using AI, because some briefs can be so complex, and if you're not patient enough, you might miss a few things. So I'm going to show you how to make a checklist of what to pay attention to when a brief is too complex. That aside, after you have understood your brief, you now want to go into writing itself. Some common mistakes I see new writers make is trying to overmarket. What do I mean by overmarketing? Because casino gaming is tied to money, it's very common for people to say things like, oh, you're going to make big wins, and then they start making promises in how they write. When you are writing for the iGaming space, you make sure not to make promises. Why? Because gambling is a risk. Watching this course itself is a risk. Because you can either go with it, learn everything and become successful, or go with it, you don't implement anything and it's a waste of your time, right? So you have risked your time here. It's 50-50. Same thing as when you're writing about gambling. You're telling people, okay, this is how this thing works. I just want you to understand how it works, but I am not promising you that you're going to get the outcome you expect. Once you have that at the back of your mind, you have gone like 20-30% ahead of someone who does not already have that, mindset when they just start writing. You do not overpromise. You also need to learn the language of iGaming. That is super, super important. If you do not know the language of iGaming, no matter how many articles you go online to read, to study, you would never figure it out because it's always going to look too complex for you. At the end of this video, I have already created a template, or rather a workbook for you. And in that workbook, you would also find a glossary. So you need to study that glossary list to understand what specific terms are and how to use them. For example, you hear something like RTP, that's a return to player. What does it mean? Right? Or you see something like, let's say, license. What does a gambling license mean? What are strong licenses? What are weak licenses? How do I write that a casino has a very good license? How do I know that this license is good? If you do not understand these things, you can't create content that your client would actually like and that will be useful to the end reader. So like I said, watch till the end because that's where I'm going to give you access to the workbook. Next, once you have understood the terms and you already know what verticals you want to do, you also want to watch videos. Look, this is not a tip that you would typically get, but it is one that will really, really help you. You want to write about slots. We have so many streamers who provide videos right here on YouTube. I also provide videos on YouTube. Watch how people play. That's going to give you an idea of what exactly you are writing about. Watch reviews. I provide slot reviews. Watch these reviews. See what I am checking. See what I am talking about. Compare this. A very good tip. If, for example, you watch a video on Mega Mullah slot review, you watch that video, compare what this person has talked about in the video with what you are reading in a written review. This will give you a general idea and even give you more insight on what to look out for when you're writing your own slot review. It's very, very helpful, and it's something that a lot of people will just look at and be like, it's a waste of my time. But trust me, you are going to benefit a lot from doing that. Now, let's run through everything we've talked about so far. We've defined what iGaming is. I've told you it covers every single thing that relates to betting online. As long as you're betting on a casino game or sports, esports, all of that counts as iGaming. Pardon me. Okay, so that's that. Then we talked about the verticals. I listed 6 verticals: casino gaming, sports betting, fantasy sports, esports, poker, and then we have lottery and bingo. Yeah, those. Now that you know the 6, I've told you to narrow everything down to 2 to get started. So you're narrowing things down to what? Casino gaming and sports betting. What you want to do is read reviews, watch videos. In the workbook, you would find links. I have provided very, very useful links there where you can find resources to just test your knowledge. Just learn a few things pending when we release the next video in a couple of days or by next week. That's done. The next thing you want to do is your assignment. In the workbook, you're going to find a section where you will tell me what this industry is worth right now, or rather, no, what it was worth in 2024 and what is going to be worth in 2030. This might look like a waste of your time, but it's very, very important, because if you do not know what an industry is worth, then you have no business being in that industry. Knowing what it is worth will tell you how much potential there is for you to make money in that space, right? Remember, the articles you're going to write is not just to tell people how to play games. You are giving them a guide. You are informing their next decision, and they depend on you to make that next move. So imagine just how much money you can make telling people what to do with their money. Now, it's mind-blowing, right? So answer that question, and please use every single resource I have provided in that workbook. I'm going to answer the very first 20 people who leave their links to their worksheet in the comments section. So what you want to do is make sure you make a copy of the doc I have shared, then answer all your questions there. Restrict access. I will click on it and request access. Once you see a request of access, grant it, and I would answer any questions you have in that worksheet. Then next week, I will do a general overview, talk about a few questions that I find in the different worksheets that I expect will be in the comment section. I will not mention your name, don't worry, you're safe. All right, so I'll answer all of that, and just hope that this journey becomes easier for you guys. See you in the next video.